Today's story is a wild one, and unless you've heard it before, you will not see this one coming. And as I tell the story, the more twisted and bizarre it gets. And I assure you, it's all factual. This is all real. Hello, strangers and strangelings. Welcome back to the Strange Bar and Grill. I'm serving up another true crime story time. So pull up a chair if you like strange true crime and storytelling, then this is the place to be. Here with me, JP. So kick back, grab a drink or a snack, and remember to always tip that like button. It helps with the channel. Join that SBG family by subscribing and hitting that notification bell to make sure you're getting notified when I release a weekly video. All right, let's go. Getting to heaven by any means necessary. One evening, a man named Edward was setting up a CCTV baby monitor for his newborn son. Now, these baby monitors can be pretty glitchy sometimes, where if someone lives near you also has a baby monitor, it could possibly pick up their signal instead, and you'd see their video instead of your own. Well, that's exactly what happened in September of 2006. When Edward went to check his baby monitor, instead of seeing his son's crib, he saw a young boy who was completely naked, arms and legs tied up behind his back. He was very dirty, didn't look healthy at all, and was eating off the floor. There were even moments where a woman's hand would kind of come into frame and feed the boy. Edward didn't recognize the boy or recognize the room the boy was in. Edward was shocked, and he would immediately call the police. The police would go door to door to find out where this footage was coming from, and they eventually found Klara, her sons, her adopted daughter, and her sister Katerina. Klara and Katerina were instantly arrested, and the three children were put into a home called Cloak Neck. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. This story gets weirder and weirder. Klara Mauerova, 31 years old, and her sister Katerina, 33 years old, were from the Czech Republic. Both like to talk about how they were destined to fulfill a mission in their lives for God. Klara had two sons, Andre, 8, and Jacob, 9, but pretty much raised them alone as the father of the boys left Klara due to her strange behavior and beliefs. She also had a degree in pedagogy, the method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or a theoretical concept. And Katerina worked in a youth center called Papersek. In the beginning, no one ever worried about Klara's capability of being a good mother and was seen as very motherly and always taking proper care of her boys. She would play with them, take them on these vacations, and would bring them to summer camps. But that all changed after a new child came into the picture. The two sisters also took part in a cult named the Grail Movement, where members believed that they could get into heaven by simply doing good deeds. But they also believed that they were completely absolved to commit crimes. Yeah, that's freaking nuts. When Katerina came to visit Klara and her nephews, she brought along a 13-year-old girl named Annika, a Norwegian orphan. Katerina was looking after her after she found out she was on the run from a sex trafficking gang in Norway. Annika explained how she was severely physically abused by the gang members, which gained a lot of sympathy and concern from Klara. Annika also suffered from many illnesses such as leukemia, kidney failure, and she was slowly going blind and deaf. She spent a large chunk of her time inside of hospitals. Klara, feeling sorry for her, started to accept Annika into her family and caring for her as her own child. However, Katerina refused to let Klara take her to any of her hospital visits and would only let her communicate with Annika through the phone, where most of the time, Annika was actually unconscious. Now, during this time, Klara began getting strange texts and emails from a mysterious doctor who claimed that he knew how to perfectly help treat and care for Annika and asked to meet in person to discuss it. So they scheduled a time to meet around midnight inside of a car. And since it was so late, it was very dark out and it was just real hard to get a look at this man's face. But she felt comfortable since he did have all Annika's medical records and also showed her his diplomatic passport. And this was enough information for Klara to accept this man as Annika's new and official doctor. And over a short period of time, the texts and emails she received from the doctor became more and more strange. He would tell her certain treatment plans that he believed would help Annika, such as telling Klara to rub her all over her body, and especially in her crotch regions for hours at a time, and he claimed that this would make Annika very, very happy. And Klara started to pay less attention to her sons, and this was around 2006, and her sons were mainly looked after by their grandparents. This was also around the time where she started to think about adopting Annika. However, the doctor told Klara that it would be impossible for her to adopt her due to how mean her sons were to Annika. And when Klara asked the doctor what she should do about this, he suggested that she should cure the boys' evil spirits with very hard discipline, tough love, and physical punishment. She began to beat the boys for every little thing they did wrong, as if she was looking for literally any reason to hurt them. She would beat them with her bare hands, wooden spoons, belts, and would even go as far as locking them up in small rooms and leaving them there overnight. In August of 2006, the doctor told Klara that these punishments weren't working and they needed to try something else. They needed to try shock therapy. She was instructed by the doctor to stop acting like their mother completely and take them to a small cottage in Vavrska Batiska, and I probably said that crazy wrong, and I apologize, which was located around a lot of nature and not too close by anyone else. And at the cottage, they met up with Katerina and another mystery man and two other women named Jan and Hannah, who Klara knew from the summer camp she would take her sons to. This cottage is where all the torture would begin for these two innocent children. These boys were kept locked up inside of dog cages, where they were quite literally treated like animals. The cages were so small, the boys couldn't stand up and they could hardly move around at all. They were also forced to eat inside the cages using dog bowls and forced to use the bathroom inside of the cages as well, and just leaving them to kind of sit in their own filth. They were forbidden to talk to each other. They were forbidden to talk to their mother and to any other person who was there. Klara would dunk their heads in water for so long that the boys were afraid that they were going to drown. While their heads were underwater, Katerina would hold their arms behind their backs so they couldn't fight off their mother. They were burnt with cigarettes, they were scratched with forks, they were SA'd, they were beaten, and they were forced to fight each other and would often have their arms and legs tied up behind their backs. And the others would also join in with the beatings and the burnings and would tie bags around their heads. They even went so far as to cutting flesh off one of the boys' buttocks and burned the area that had been cut with cigarettes. They even forced the boy to eat his own flesh. They enjoyed that so much that they began to take skin off other parts of their body so that they could eat it as well, and make both boys eat their own skin. If the boys ever threw up, they were forced to eat that too. They would also make sure their mouths were taped shut so they weren't able to scream. But Annika would make things worse by lying to the adults, telling them that the boys were still mean to her because she knew that they would get hurt if they continued to bully her. The group would also pretend to abuse Annika as well so the boys wouldn't think it was only them. And this abuse went on for 8 long days before going back home. In September of 2006, Klara decided to get the ball rolling on the adoption again, and it was a success this time. Klara decided to hand over her sons to Katerina so she could solely focus on taking care of Annika, as she felt like Annika still had so many problems and needed so much extra attention that she couldn't care for all 3 children for a while. And in January of 2007, the boys and Katerina all moved back with Klara, and that's when the abuse started up again. The boys were treated pretty much exactly the same they were back in the cottage, but this time they were kept in a cement cellar where they had every moment being recorded. And meanwhile, Annika was in her own bedroom, brightly lit up, lots of colors, lots of toys, and she was just very happy. But the boys remained locked up down there for about a year before Edward, the neighbor, happened to pick up their CCTV signal on his baby monitor. The story does not end there. Like I said, this story gets crazier as we go along. So are you ready for the twist? Annika was never really Annika at all. She was actually a 33-year-old woman named Barbara Skrylova. She had a glandular disease that made her look a lot younger than she actually was, and could easily pass off as being a 13-year-old girl. Barbara used this to her advantage and would often use the fact that she looked like a child to get her to avoid charges being filed when she broke the law. She ran away to Denmark and then made her way to Oslo, Norway, where she began to impersonate a 13-year-old boy named Adam Fauna. He was then placed in an emergency youth center due to claims of being brutally abused by his father, but he ran away from there as well shortly after. Missing posters went up everywhere and he was eventually found and was busted. Police figured out his real identity and she was sent back to Norway as Barbara. And again, like I said, the story just gets wilder and wilder. Are you ready for the second twist? So I told you that Klara brought her boys to this cottage and they abused them. Well, everyone in that cottage was tied to a man named Joseph. Joseph was the leader of the cult they were in. Joseph was also Barbara's father. And Katerina, Klara's sister, her older sister, actually knew who Annika really was the entire time and purposely played Klara as she knew how easy it would be to manipulate her because she was seen as a pushover. She was seen as very gullible and someone that believed anything you would tell her. And apparently they were right. And it was Joseph who provided all of the documents that were shown to Klara inside that car that one night. And I believe Joseph was also the man who was inside of the car as well. There was also never any doctor, and all of those texts and emails came from Katerina and Barbara's devices. Martin Fauna and his wife were also in the same cult and used their own son's identity to smuggle Barbara into Denmark and then into Norway. So that boy she was impersonating was a stolen identity because his parents were a part of this cult. Oh, and also the man that went with Klara to abuse the boys in the cottage was also Annika's real-life brother. Barbara would later claim that she did all of this to escape the reality of her own life. And in court, Barbara would also try to claim that she was beaten by the two sisters as well, but no one believed her. Klara was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Only 9 years? Come on. Katerina was sentenced to 10 years, and Barbara was sentenced to 5 years. And the others who were also at the cottage got between 5 and 7 years. And everyone has since been paroled. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today. If you guys like that story and you're new to my channel, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments section. This one's a wild one. This actually reminds me of, what is the story that's out recently with Natalie? I think the girl's name is Natalie, but the parents are basically trying to say that this child is older than what she is and they left her alone in this home for all this time. And I just seen they have like a new part to that documentary out currently on like HBO, and I haven't watched it yet, but I believe these people may have heard this story and did not want this kid anymore. And I know I'm talking about a whole different story right now and not the one at hand here, but I think this one may have influenced that other case, and they're trying to say that, oh, their daughter's older than what she is in a similar type of thing. But anyway, that's a whole different case. If you guys want me to cover that case, let me know in the comment section. But this story was wild from the beginning to the end. Let me know if you guys seen that one coming. Let me know if you guys heard this story before. But yeah, and I also believe the movie The Orphan is based off of this story as well. Oh, before I forget, I do have a Discord server, Discord channel, whatever you call it, and it's free. Come join it. If you guys have any story ideas, recommendations, whatever, come chat with me out there. But yeah, be safe, be good.